For KRVN Sports, I'm Jason Jorgensen. Longtime Kearney High boys basketball coach Kyle Hoehner is being honored this week as he is being inducted into the Kearney High School Hall of Fame. Of course, Kyle had a great run as head coach of the Bearcats back in the day, and he says this honor really means a lot to him.
I'm really humbled by it. Like you said, I know people use this term a lot, and sometimes people want to roll the eyes. But I've been really blessed to be able to work at three different jobs. First at Kearney as a teacher and coach, which I absolutely loved every bit of it. And my time at Lexington as the AD and principal, I wouldn't trade for anything. I just still love the people. Living at Johnson Lake right now, as a matter of fact. And so really, really love this community and the job and the support that was here. And then Cozad Elementary there for a couple of years with that opportunity. And so I've been really fortunate in everything I've done. But no, to hear from Steve Wickham, he was the principal when I was there, and now he's long retired, but he's still on the Hall of Fame committee. And he called and just said, "Well, you're in," because I've been in a lot of trouble many different times. So I thought what I was in. But anyway, so that was I think that was this summer, and so it was wonderful to hear that because you don't sit around thinking about it, but when that comes to fruition, it means you maybe probably spent a lot of time there, a long time, and maybe did a couple things right.
How are you able to maintain the level of success you had there at Kearney when for many years, at least numbers-wise, you were kind of on the bottom end of Class A, battling all those schools from Omaha and Lincoln, Grand Island, and all of them?
Right. It's kind of interesting. I think I worked for Paul Norblade. I was his assistant coach, and Paul taught me a lot of really important things. I was, like I said, the JV coach for him, I think, for 4 years. And then he gave up the job, and we struggled, and they had for years. I mean, I think there were only a couple state tournaments in like 45 years, couple three, something like that. And, I came from Bertrand, much smaller school, but we had a lot of success. My dad was the coach, and if we finished 11 and 10 like I did my first year at Kearney High, we'd have been really upset. We would have been, what the heck? And at Kearney at that time, they were just over the top because we had a winning season. And so it was just a different situation. But we knew early on, I think I was 25 years old when I got the job, and my assistant coaches were Brad Archer, and later on, he was like 23. I was coaching baseball with him, and my head assistant was Bill Becker, and I think he was about my age, and Tim Ernst, who's at Lincoln Southwest as a counselor. He just retired. I think he was 22. I mean, we didn't know what the heck we were doing, but we were enthusiastic, passionate about it. And but the one thing we said is, I think we played Lincoln Northeast at that time, and we had a schedule of like 9 B schools, and we thought, we are not going to get better unless we start playing the best, and we're going to get beat up pretty good to start with. But anyway, so we scheduled all the Lincoln schools. We picked up Fremont. We dropped a lot of the B schools, and we kept Lexington, who was always tough, GI Northwest and those. But for the most part, it became a completely A schedule, and we got knocked around a little bit. But the thing that helped us is we got very fortunate to go to a couple state tournaments in those first 3 years, and people got excited about basketball. And I think we went to 6 state tournaments the first 8 years there, and people started paying attention. And like I said, that 11 and 10 record that we had early on, that wasn't working real well later on, which we knew we'd raise the ante. And so again, we started looking around. I remember when we qualified for our first state tournament, my second year, we were like the 4th seed going in. We had a couple great games, and a lot of young kids played better toward the end of the year. We knocked off a couple teams that had beaten us by 20 early in the year, and we stood around and we said, well, what do we do now? We didn't have rooms at state. We were scurrying, so it was quite an experience. But yeah, things changed over time, and like I said, we just had a number of great coaches that were so supportive and great kids. I mean, I started, after this happened, just start thinking about those individuals individuals, and of course, you know me, it's about relationships, but those strong relationships that just really mean a lot. And hearing from a lot of the old crew, I got to tell you one thing here. I know I'm not talking much right now, but
no, not at all.
One of my assistants, he was an assistant, volunteer assistant. He'd never paid on my staff. John Urshery, who's now an AD at a large California school. He was with us when he was just a little guy at UNK, and he sent me a text, said, "Gosh, I wish I'd have known about this. I'd have come out." And I said, "Oh, that's okay. Good to hear from you, John." And he gets back the next day, says, "Hey, I booked a flight. I'm coming." And so, those are the kind of things that, and I haven't seen John in probably 25 years, but it's those kind of relationships that are developed that really mean a lot, mean more than anything else.
One thing that I remember back in the heyday was being a kid from Minden, and if we weren't playing, we would go to Kearney, and that old gym up on the hill, the atmosphere in that place, and when you had big games, that was good stuff.
It was amazing. I always said, they wanted to build a new gym, and they said, "Aren't you supportive of this? Because you don't seem that excited." I said, "Hey, I love this gym." I said, "When we're bad, we still have a chance, and because of the home court advantage." But I said, "When we're good, nobody else really has a chance." And so I kind of like this here, and so and we love that. I was at Lexington when they played the last game there, and was again honored to go back and meet with Coach Norblade and all the guys that had coached during that time, and Scott Steinbrook, who was my assistant, and he was the head coach at that time. And then I think it was Drake Baronic that actually had just taken over that year for that last game. So to be recognized and whatever, I still miss that place. It's now a church. I think a Baptist church in Kearney, but yeah, it's a neat deal. So yeah, we love playing there, and you could fill it up. I think it was seated maybe 2,000 if you had both ends in and whatever. And we had the fire marshal have to come in a few times, and it was tough for other teams to come into that because it's just so different. That I think other than Gehring, Nebraska, I don't know of another gym like that.
Agreed. Yeah, they were from the same blueprint. Well, congratulations. This has just have to feel so good. And as you said, you can talk about all the wins and losses and the trips to state, but when it comes down to it, it's really about relationships and the people that you cross paths with.
Absolutely. I mean, without the relationships, there are a lot of highs and lows throughout that whole thing with everything really in life and especially in education. And if you're waiting around for the support and the kudos and all that stuff, the people that you really develop that really see you in your best and worst times, whether they're parents, coaches, whatever, and obviously players, that's where you develop those strong relationships that last a lifetime. And really credit to my family. My dad was my coach. My mom, I still have lunch with her once a week in Kearney. She's 89, finally retired. And my brothers and sisters, they're also supportive. And they've really made what I've been able to do really sound bigger than it probably is, and just a lot of fun for everybody. So I appreciate that.
And that's former Kearney High boys basketball coach Kyle Hoehner. What a run he had leading the program from 1985 through 2007. He still remains the winningest boys basketball coach in school history with 256 career victories. And during his 21-year tenure, he led teams to 9 state tournament appearances, including 5 Final Four finishes in Lincoln. Hoehner, along with the rest of this year's inductees, will be honored at halftime of Friday night's basketball game. For KRVN Sports, I'm Jason Jorgensen.